The row over genetically modified foods is never out of the headlines. And this display from the Science Museum lays out the arguments for and against GM foods in order to help you make up your mind. But what is GM food? And how do we know if we're eating it? Well, in this case, there's no problem. The chefs here are cooking up a GM pizza. It's got as many GM ingredients as they could find. They're all the kind of things that are in the food in the shops right now. Now, the base has both GM soya and GM maize in it. The tomatoes in the tomato paste are all genetically modified, just like it says on the label on the tin here. And these bacon flakes have never seen a pigsty. That's because they're not bacon at all. They're a taste alike with GM soya in them. And there's even a special cheese where a GM product is used in the manufacturing process. Well, there you are, finished? Yes? Yep. The GM pizza. Looks just like any other pizza, and there's the problem. How can we tell if the food we eat is genetically modified or not? You can't by tasting it, you can't by looking at it, and you can't always tell by the label. So in it goes. Right, now how can we be sure? Well, Jez Nelson's been on the GM trail.
Supermarkets are all about choice. 15 different types of bread, 20 different types of cereal. But now there's another choice, whether or not to eat genetically modified foods. To make that choice, we need information. Until now, the science has only existed to say whether or not GM ingredients are present. They haven't been able to pinpoint the exact level. But now, that's all going to change. RHM Technology is the first British company to develop a test that can be used on processed foods to work out the exact genetically modified content of any product.
At the moment, we're carrying out a lot of tests to look for the presence of genetically modified soya. Soya is present in a large number of processed foods. The genetically modified soya is different to the older form, the unmodified soya, in that it contains a gene which allows it to be grown in the presence of herbicide. In other words, it's herbicide resistance.
So what we have in here is a regular supermarket pizza. It looks perfectly normal. What we're going to do now is to test this to find out what percentage, if any, of genetically modified soya it contains. To start the test, Dr. Wiseman takes a sample of the ground-up pizza and puts it through a series of processes which will extract the DNA. For all that DNA is the very stuff of life, it's actually made up of only 4 parts, named A, T, G and C. Each gene is made up of 2 strands of combinations of thousands of those letters, bound together by chemical bonds. A's always bond with T's and C's always bond with G's. Dr. Wiseman needs to separate the DNA from the rest of the material in the pizza before he can start to analyse its structure and determine exactly how much of it is genetically modified. After a short while, he has a sample of pure DNA. You can see it almost solid white in the test tube. If the soya GM strand he's looking for is spelt TAC, ATGT, he can find out if it's present in the pizza sample by putting in another strand that is its opposite, that is ATGT, ACA. If it binds to another strand, then that must be the GM gene he's looking for. The clever thing about this test is that he can even find the very short strands of DNA that have been broken up by cooking and processing. The DNA sample is multiplied millions of times to make it big enough to analyse. Then a computer can count the number of specifically GM soya genes that are found and calculate the exact percentage. So Gordon, this is how you analyse the final results of the test.
Yes, here we can see the results from a material which contains no GM soya. And here is a sample which we know to contain 2% GM soya. And here's the result from our pizza, which we can calculate from these curves, contains 0.1% genetically modified soya.
At the moment, supermarkets test their foods voluntarily. But by the end of the year, new European legislation will make it mandatory to label any product with more than 1 or 2% GM content. And it's tests like this that will make sure the label means exactly what it says.
Well, now for the real test. How many of our audience are prepared to eat a piece of pizza that we can guarantee is genetically modified? How about you?
Yeah, I'll try.
You're going to have some?
Yeah.
Fancy a bit of GM pizza?
Thank you.
Why not?
I'm not happy about GM foods. I don't think we know enough about how it's going to affect the environment, how it might affect animals.
Okay, what about you?
Oh, yes, please.
You're going to have a bit of pizza. You want GM pizza for anybody? All seem quite happy to have a go. Anybody not too happy about the idea of some GM pizza, apart from this lady here? One or two not so happy. Okay. Well, there we are then. Mixed feelings about our GM pizza here, but at least we do know from Jez Nelson that there is some technology that will help us in the future to tell how much GM there is in the food in the shops.
Well, whatever your taste, Tomorrow's World Live is all about finding out. There are thousands of interactive things to do, like discovering just how good you have to be to beat the best chess player in the world,